Hi everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. Um, Welcome to today's session on Africa Matters platform. Today my name is my name is Danai, and today I'll be talking about confronting your inner self during the lockdown. Yeah, I think one of the reasons why I chose this topic in particular is because one, I'm really passionate about mental health as well as, like understanding yourself a lot better. But I also think because of the times that we currently live in, I've been reading a lot about, how other people have been coping with their mental health. And I think that this is a very important topic to talk about. Um, so if you have any questions, please just post them on the comment section and I'll try and address them as I go through the webinar today. Yeah, I think as a disclaimer, just before I start, I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not a qualified psychologist, let me rather say that. But I think I speak based off of my experiences that I've had. I also am talking as a person who you know is currently working during the lockdown. I'm speaking as a person who is currently receiving their salary, their full salary, especially during the lockdown. And I think a disclaimer, as it will serve relevance as I talk through this topic today. um, I found out, or the reason why I chose to do this topic in particular is because I realized that, us as young people, we're always talking about how we want time, right? We're always constantly busy, and whenever we engage with our friends or with ourselves, we always say, no, there's not enough time to talk about this, or there's not enough time to talk about, the things that I'm going through, and I need to focus on the work that I'm currently doing. And I think lockdown has allowed me, especially, to address some of the things that I've always put aside. So things like, why am I, always like, I'm experiencing imposter syndrome, even though I know that the value that I bring to not only the organizations that I serve, but to the people that I interact with is, is important. And I think that undergoing that process of like learning myself and understanding, why it is that I feel that I feel, I've been able to sort of confront some of my inner demons, as so to say. And I think that it was an important conversation for me to have as a person, but it was also an important conversation for me to also share with some of my friends as well. And I think, and I hope that, through my my experiences and through me telling sort of the journey that I've gone on thus far, that you are able to sort of take something away from this. If one person is able to say, look, I've learned something more about myself through me sharing my experiences, I think that will be something that I would be really proud of. And I think that part of, sharing your experiences and being vulnerable is that, you not only do it for other people, but you do it for yourself as well. Yes. So a bit about myself. So like I said, my name is Danai Nyagani. I am a very bubbly 25-year-old who's based in South Africa. I work for a youth organization called Youth Health Africa. I think my experiences on this project has allowed me to sort of discover more about myself. It has allowed me to become interested in topics that I don't think I would have been interested about. And more especially, I've been able to learn more about some of the challenges that young people face, not only in the workplace, but in their personal lives as well. Yeah, and I think through that experience of having to start a project from scratch, and start a project as a young person, working with other young people who might not have the same experiences as I have, and certainly don't have, the recommended, 3, 4, 5 years work experience. I think I faced a lot of challenges regarding myself and the way that I saw myself. So one of the biggest things that I've always had to juggle or deal with is the feeling of like feeling like an imposter, right? Um, sometimes like I feel like, when I go to work, the stuff that I'm doing, it isn't fitted for me. Sometimes I feel like I don't necessarily deserve to be in the positions that I'm in. Um, but I've always found a good way to manage those feelings, right? I've always found a way to acknowledge that, okay, yes, these are the experiences that I'm going through. And yeah, but I've never really done anything about it. And I think lockdown has allowed me to actually do that, is to confront why it is that I feel like I am an imposter in some of the positions that I'm in some of the friendships and the relationships that I'm in. And I think in doing that, I not only learned to acknowledge those feelings, but to set myself up in such a way that when I do feel those feelings again, it's not something that I'm afraid of, and it's not something that I feel guilty about. Because I think sometimes as a young person, when you feel a particular feeling, you feel guilty for feeling it, right? You feel like, oh, like why am I feeling this way? Why is it that, despite all the things that I have around me and despite all the positives that I have around me, I'm still feeling, either like a failure or I feel like I don't belong here. And I think that, me setting myself up so that I don't feel that guilt anymore has been one of the greatest things that I've done for myself, especially during this time during lockdown. Um, I think the difference between, and maybe to also clarify, the difference between, confronting your inner self and doing introspection, from my perspective, is that doing introspection is about acknowledging the feelings that you have, right? So, you allow yourself to feel the things that you feel, and you acknowledge that, okay, yes, I'm feeling sad, and you allow yourself to feel it, right? But you don't necessarily do anything about it per se. I think whereas confronting your inner self is about sitting down and asking yourself, okay, why is it that I'm feeling these feelings? Where do they come from? How can I make myself, how can I make my environment conducive for me to not feel like this anymore? And how do I also accept and live with the fact that, yes, I will experience these feelings and it's okay, and not have that guilt attached to it. And I think that is what the difference between like confronting yourself for the purpose of making yourself a better person, and just acknowledging and recognizing that you're feeling certain things. Um, I think, lockdown as a time, as a period in our lives, has opened up so many anxieties for all of us. I know that for the youth that I work with on the program, a lot of them, are so used to, going to work, earning their money, seeing their friends, and engaging with their families, and not being able to do that has caused a lot of them, myself included, a lot of anxiety, right? So you don't know when I'll be able to see my friends again. You don't really know when I'll be able to, just go to the shops because I feel like going to the shops, or going overseas because I want to go see my friends and have a holiday. And I think that this time has brought up a lot of stuff that we as a people don't or haven't actually paid attention to, or the stuff that we've managed to, sweep under the carpet. I also think that because this time is so uncertain, we don't know how long we'll be in lockdown. It will be for 3 months, 6 months, 2 years. We don't really know, and I think that this has also unearthed some of the stuff that we've maybe chosen not to address and deal with as a person as well. And I think that what makes this time also very beneficial for people to also address some of the stuff that they've been going through and confront the inner demons is that us as young people are, like I said, are constantly busy, and now we are forced to stop. Now we are forced to sit with our thoughts and our emotions and actually deal with them. And I know some people might see that as a negative because, for someone who copes by seeing other people or doing things or engaging with society, this time might be a very, chaotic time for them. It might be a time for them that they're very uncomfortable in. But I think that being uncomfortable is also a sign of growth. And I think that in as much as us as young people rely on each other, rely on our friends, we are now forced to learn to also rely on ourselves. Um, I think in terms of like why it is important for someone to confront their inner self, I think for me as a person, I have always had this idea of, okay, in 10 years' time, this is the person that I want to be. These are the goals that I would like to achieve. This is the kind of personality that I would like to have, and this is the kind of impact that I would like to have in my society. But I've never had the time to actually get myself to that person. I've always been really busy either with work. I've always been really busy with, my personal life, my social life, with life in general. And I haven't taken the time to just sit and, plan, okay, if this is where I am at the moment, how do I make myself get to that person that I want to be in 5 or 10 years' time? And I think part of me getting there meant that I needed to deal with certain things, um, and not only acknowledge some of the stuff that I've been feeling or have felt or have chosen not to feel, but it was also about how do I make my path to becoming this ideal person that I want for myself? How do I make that path more nourishing? How do I make that journey a lot easier for me to get to? And yeah, like I won't lie and say that it was all nice and roses and it was easy. I think that, the scariest thing is always confronting yourself or knowing something about yourself that you didn't know before and not knowing what it means. I think that it's a very vulnerable thing to do, because, you don't want to notice the bad stuff or the imperfections that you have with yourself. And I think that, especially during a time like this where you don't necessarily have all the coping mechanisms that you would have had, I think that it is still an important journey to undergo. And in doing that, you might not be able to say, okay, fine, I fixed myself, I'm perfect, I am now the best version of myself, and I am now this ideal person that I've always wanted to be. But I think it helps us, get to that place where we want to be. I think for me, one of the things that I had to do like consciously was that all the coping mechanisms that I've had to change them. So I'm normally the type of person who would go and hang out with my friends and actually remove myself from a situation and go to another context. I would either, travel. I'm really fond of traveling, and I would use that time to do a lot of reflections. But I think because now I'm here, I've had to find other coping mechanisms within, the confines of my house, within the confines of, the way in which I'm able to communicate with my friends on how to deal with all of my emotions and all of my stuff. And I think that one thing that we also have to acknowledge as a people, as well as young people in particular, is that we have to adapt to the current situation that we're in, and we have to adapt our coping mechanisms as well. I've seen a few of my friends not cope or not adjust their coping mechanism to fit the current climate, and as a result, they felt very, very lost. And I think that, we are living in an unprecedented time. Like we've never experienced this. Our parents have never experienced this. Our great grandparents have never experienced such a pandemic before. And so I think as much as we need to adapt, we also need to recognize that, none of us know what we're doing. None of us know how to survive, how to, deal with such anxiety in such a stressful time. Yeah, I think once I did that for myself, I was able to then, realize that, okay, fine. So some of my coping mechanisms that I had in the past that I thought were working weren't actually working for me. And I discovered new ways of coping with my anxiety, with coping with the uncertainty of what tomorrow might bring. But I think it also helped me set myself up for confronting myself. And I could find ways to deal with the stress and the fallout of actually confronting some of my inner emotions. I think the tools that one can use to confront themselves, or to confront themselves, is, I think, being patient with yourself. It's a weird thing to think about. I think often at times we think that, oh, introspection, the journey to self-discovery is something that you can do in a week, in a month, in a year even, and it's not that easy. Often you'll find yourself, taking a step forward and 2 steps back. And I think that it's important that we are patient with each other, but more importantly with ourselves, in terms of, look, yes, these are the things that you're feeling. And yes, this is the place that you would like to be in 5 or 10 years' time. But, it's okay to be at this particular stage. It doesn't mean that you're going to be at this stage for the rest of your life. It also doesn't mean that this particular stage of the things that you're feeling, and the stage at which your emotions are at the moment, are going to define you for the rest of your life. And it's also not just about being patient, but about constantly reminding yourself to be patient. I found that while I am discovering myself, I sometimes get impatient with myself, because I'm like, bruh, you've been feeling these feelings for like the past 2 weeks. You constantly are saying, look, this is where we want to be next week, and we haven't gotten there. And sometimes I find myself sort of like giving up a little bit. I was like, you know what, maybe I must just like sit and just wallow in all these emotions that I'm feeling, and maybe not even confront myself at all, because it's such a daunting experience. But I think in constantly reminding myself that, look, Rome wasn't built in a day, neither was Africa, and neither will you. I think that has motivated me to constantly want to learn more about myself, but not just learn for the sake of learning, but learn for the sake of improving myself, for the sake of setting myself up for a better version of myself as well. And I think that patience and repetition are the two things that really got me through, or have gotten me through, this journey of like understanding myself and confronting myself. Um, I think for other people, there might be different things that will work for them. I know some people just like prefer to be in spaces where they could be by themselves. Other people prefer to be in spaces where they could share their experiences with other people. I think part of that journey is understanding what works for you and what doesn't. And I think more, especially now, it's important that we don't base what we're doing or who we want to be on else is doing. I know that because we're now sort of are really dependent and reliant on social media, we see a lot of people, going on their own personal journeys and trying to discover themselves. And we would want to adapt some of the stuff that they're doing because it looks cool, or it from our perspective, it looks like it's working, but it actually isn't. And I would like to there's an English word that like describes what I'm trying to say, but I would like to sort of ask that we take time to actually find things that work for us. And if there are things that contrast with the way in which our friends see us, or the way in which our family sees us, then let it be. I don't think that we are able or can continue basing the way in which we deal with ourselves based off of other people's expectations of us as well. Yeah. I think one of the benefits of confronting yourself, which I found to be really liberating, is that once you know a part of yourself, you're not afraid to feel emotions that are related to that part. So, for example, once I realized that, okay, fine, I feel imposter syndrome quite often, and me feeling that feeling isn't a representation of where I am as a person. It's just maybe an expression of just how I deal with the situations that I'm in. And just because I feel like I might not belong in a particular space doesn't necessarily mean that my contributions or my presence isn't valued. And because of that, I am able to recognize that, okay, I am feeling like an imposter, and allow myself to feel that experience, because I know that, okay, fine, maybe the insight that I might get out of it will help me better contribute to the space that I'm in, or better fill the position that I'm currently occupying. So I think that in confronting yourself, it's not just about learning who you are, but I think it really does help in you understanding your impact and the value that you bring to people's lives and to specific spaces as well. I think one of the questions that I've been asked quite a lot, especially by the youth that I work with on the program, is, do you find coping mechanisms to help you adjust to this new reality? And one of the things that I've been doing is I've been doing everything. I've done a bit of gardening, and I've realized that, you know what, that actually does help me do something, because I'm a person that likes to see changes. And so by doing some gardening, obviously you are able to see, your plants grow or die depending on, how green your hands are. I've also taken up a bit of baking because I like, playing with things. I like having tangible things in my hands and having a tangible product at the end of the day. I've used sitting in the sun as a way to just let my body know that, we're not in the house constantly, but we're actually changing environments. And it's weird, like, one would think that sitting in the sun will just keep your body warm, but I realize that my mentality and the way that I see things has also changed as well. And I think that it's important for people, especially for those that are looking for a routine or looking for various coping mechanisms, to also just ask around and find out, okay, how are people coping? Trying it out and seeing if it's something that works for you. If it doesn't, leave it. If it does, adapt it to your current situation. I attended a webinar a couple of weeks ago, hosted by the Youth Program Organization, Youth Power Organization, I mean. And it was very interesting seeing how young people from around the world were dealing with their mental health, especially during this time. So one of the speakers was a student, I think, from the Philippines, and they were mentioning how they have created a bingo sheet of like all the possible coping mechanisms one can have, and they've distributed that throughout their communities. And I think that it was something that was so small that I hadn't thought about, and yet the impact of someone receiving a piece of paper that had possible ways of coping during this time, and the impact that would have on someone's life who might not know how to cope during this time was very, significant for me, to the extent where I actually adapted it, and, the team has then distributed to all the youth on our program. And I've seen how so many people have said, look, this is really helpful. I've been able to adapt some of the stuff that you've mentioned on the bingo sheet. And, I feel a lot better because of it. And I think part of the outcomes of confronting yourself is that you're also helping other people. By being vocal about, where you are in your life, by being vocal about the things that you're doing to cope with not only the anxieties that you're feeling right now regarding, the pandemic, but also regarding, realizing that there are certain things of yourself, there are certain parts of yourself that aren't perfect. I think has definitely made me aware of, the contributions that I have in other people's life by merely sharing what I'm experiencing and what I'm feeling. And I think that, whether it's doing introspection, whether it's confronting your inner self, whether it's just celebrating yourself, I think that during this time especially, it's very important that we're able to share it with everyone, because we don't really know the impact of what our story have on other people, unless we actually share it. I also think that during this time, it's also important for us to not be very hard on ourselves. So I know that while I was on this, or while I am on this journey of trying to better myself and better understand why is it that I have certain insecurities, I've also acknowledged and have taken it to heart that I also, put myself or pressurize myself in becoming this better person. I have a really supportive partner who has taught me, the value of being vulnerable, not only with yourself but with people, and the value of, not of not only celebrating, the downfalls of your life or acknowledging the downfalls of your life, but also celebrating, the parts of your life that you might not always celebrate. So things like, um, waking up in the morning every day in the past used to be something that was, that I never used to take cognizant of. But because now, I'm very aware, okay, I'm waking up again and this is where I am and this is how I'm feeling. My partner has been really supportive in helping me channel some of those emotions that I'm feeling. And yeah, I think that it's important for us as young people to not only introspect or acknowledge the bad stuff in our lives, but also, the good stuff and the ordinary stuff that we normally take for granted as well. Yeah, so I hope that my little session on self-discovery, as well as, finding ways to cope, especially during this time, has been of use to you. I definitely now feel like I can continue this journey of like discovering myself. I realized that while I was sharing my opinions and my experiences, that there are some things that I actually have achieved that I've never like acknowledged. There's some things that I've now realized that I actually want to continue learning about myself. And I hope that you have also, learned a bit about not only me, but also about yourself as well. I will take any questions if there are any questions. It was nice talking to everyone. I think the other thing about lockdown is that you don't get to share your experiences with a lot of people. So it's really amazing that I can share this with the whole of Africa. And yeah, I really hope that people are able to also have similar sessions with their friends, are able to, just express how they're feeling, express the journeys that they've been going. And yeah, any questions from anybody or comments? Um, mm, Maybe what I can do while we wait for everyone for those questions to sort of type their questions in, is that I think one of the things that I've also done, which I found to be really liberating, is I've written notes to myself. So because this is such a unique time, and I don't think we will ever experience a time like this again, I've actually been taking note of, how my feeling day 14 and how whatever I've been doing on day 21 and what are the cool things that I've discovered on day 34. And it seems very insignificant now, but I think that being able to reflect on this particular time, 6 months, 12 months, 3 years from now, I think will have such an immense impact on the way in which that I see myself, but I'm also able to track the journey that I've on in becoming the ideal person that I want to be. If there are no questions, I would really, really, really like to thank everyone for those that have attended this cool webinar. I really do appreciate you listening to me and listening to my rants and listening to me sort of unpack myself and repackage myself. I think this was a really cool experience. I really do encourage those that have been impacted by this conversation to email or message or private message Africa Matters on, wanting to do a webinar like this. It's very nerve-wracking in the beginning, but I think once you get really comfortable, you're able to sort of speak your mind and your heart about things that are important to you. I am always really appreciative of Africa Matters in allowing me to have this space. This is my second time doing a webinar, and I think every time I do it, I'm always learning more stuff, not only about myself, but I'm also able to, reach new people that I haven't reached before, and possibly start conversations with different groups of people that I wouldn't have had I not been on this platform as well. So I'd like to thank Africa Matters so much for this amazing opportunity. I hope to have another slot sometime towards the end of the year, just to chat about, what life is like after lockdown, if it is lifted by then, fingers crossed. Yes, hope everyone has a blessed day, and continue doing the work, continue learning about yourselves, and continue being the best versions of yourself as well, because there's only one of you, and it's only you that can make, your life the best, or your life the best version of. Yeah, thanks everyone.